Mellissa Wilson, Director of CEMaT, the Center for Educational Materials and Technology, as well as a curriculum consultant for Lenawee County educators. As a team, they're beginning to move closer toward answering the essential question that's being asked across our nation right now in education. How do we engage students in meaningful work that is both authentic and beneficial for them, not just now. Ryan Rowe, your superintendent, had really encouraged all staff at Madison to start planning their curriculum and instruction around the Universal by Design model, which required you as grade levels to get together and say, what are we teaching, why are we teaching it, and what will it look like across your curriculum. So it's really great that you're willing to collaborate together and take this journey to try and develop a big idea unit that could really span a lot of your grade levels. How do you really start to plan for all those subject areas?
We teach literacy, word work, science, social studies, math.
So how do you begin to plan for it all? What is your approach right now?
At this point, you kind of sit down with all your different pieces of curriculum and, I look at the week and I plan out what I'm going to do for that week using the things that we have. And so this is kind of different in that we're creating the curriculum to teach the standards.
I think the hardest part is that you can't necessarily plan for that whole week. You have to be able to go in the direction that the students take you. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really hard because as teachers we like to plan ahead and we like to know what's going on.
Yep.
Well, and the end outcome is not necessarily what we have in mind, but what they have in mind.
How have you seen the students react to interacting in this new kind of journey in unit design? Have you seen a difference in their interaction with the curriculum compared to before?
They don't seem to be realizing that they're like learning. It's more like they seem to be having more fun.
Oh yeah, I was going to say that they love it.
They do, they love it. They appear like, oh, she wants us to do this, and then we're going to do like the rest of the learning she wants us to do today. Mm-hmm. But she's letting us have some fun.
It's always a plus. Yeah. So when you sit down together, I imagine, probably weekly, get together as a team, how do you decide that direction to go, knowing that you want it to flow more together? But where do you start? Is it a certain subject area? How do you begin to pace out something like this?
We usually start with a unit. Like last one we worked on were space systems. So we sat down, we looked at what the benchmarks were, we started hopping on the internet, seeing what kind of materials were already out there and available, and figuring out what were those essential questions that we wanted to teach and going from there.
I'm glad you brought up the essential question. Do you right now plan from one essential question, or does each subject area have its own? How are you utilizing that component of UbD in what you do?
I think we developed like a few essential questions, so it covered all the different aspects of that unit.
And it was more science related.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then we found other ways to include the writing and the language arts.
Okay. Well, I think today, hoping through your collaboration and work together that we'll, jump from that step you've already taken to establishing big ideas and essential questions and really try to say, could we do it all in one package, knowing that math sometimes doesn't fit, but could we have one big idea for the entire unit driven by one essential question that's broad enough to allow you to make all those connections amongst those animal standards? What do you see are big ideas or themes within that animal unit of study?
Survival, needs.
Okay.
Traits.
Patterns of behavior.
Growth and development.
Offspring.
And with that, inheriting traits. Plant animal features that aid in survival.
Okay. Do you see that being different than traits? So that survival piece and maybe they're the traits that help for survival. So this could really go, maybe play hand in hand.
Behavior.
Okay. So I love that we first started off with what we would probably deem as a topic. Many times, and myself especially too, when I was in the classroom, I had my animal unit. And certainly I taught all of these things within, but what's so neat about what you're doing with your grade level team, you're saying, well, we know that animals is just one topic that will fall underneath this big idea unit. So when we take a look at the science unit that maybe before was animals, we're saying let's take a look at more of these broader themes and what's popping out at us. What could really lend itself towards a big idea unit? Let's do the same with social studies. What do you see when you take a look at your social studies standards and what remains to be taught this year?
Economics.
Okay. So you have econ, and then like we did here, what are those more detailed pieces?
Scarcity.
Okay.
Goods, consumer,
Services and producers.
Consumption.
Choice.
I think it's consumption one. Okay. So now maybe even just chat with that person next to you. What are you seeing as far as we started with these topics, but now we know we're looking at more of these broader ideas. Do you see anything in common? So if we're thinking about, is there a big idea that could transfer across both science and social studies being taught at the same time? Or do we have anything that we could say, ooh, yep, put this together, and here could be one big idea? Now we need our essential question. So when we think about the big idea of survival, what is a question that we could pose to students that could really stand the test of time? It's not just something that would be relevant to ask now. We could ask it in the past as well as the future, and it would still be something that we could discuss and dig deeper into. So take a moment to think about that, maybe draft with your colleague next to you. What is something that we could ask? And we're really trying to avoid topics or subject areas. So you certainly want your idea of survival, maybe some of the words you use, the needs and wants, but we want to avoid making it more like a social studies. Knowing that we could be anything. It could be animals in the right context, it could be plants, it could be people or characters in a story. What could that sound like?
Yeah.
survivor.
And now one thing I'm wondering, when I took a look at social studies, you have a lot of interesting, can be interesting ideas in your economics unit, thinking about producers and consumers' needs and wants. So certainly needs would fall under survival, but what about those wants? It could feel kind of not negative, but how could we also spin that kind of, the needs and want piece? Could it be survival and something else? So thinking about interacting with the world, not just to survive, but also somehow enjoy it.
And thrive.
With
each other.
With each other?
Within a community.
Mm-hmm. Within the community that we live in our world. That would be really broad. Mm. So it sounds like you've maybe come to a conclusion on an essential question that could be quite engaging to students and really inspire you to think across your curriculum. Does anyone want to state it out loud first so we can hear it and plan from it?
How do we survive and thrive in our world?
Okay. And how do you see that essential question really moving across the disciplines? Maybe start with how do you see it in science and then social studies and language arts.
Consumers, producers, needs and wants. I even connected, we do a lot of money. So secure goal in first grade, but tying the
Ties math in.
math in with the needs and wants. And
The choices you
Talking
make.
about scarcity and when there isn't enough of something that you might need.
So for me, that we took the science and the social studies because I feel typically I focus on one or the other, and so looking at the standards for both of those and tying those together really helped.
It was helpful going through the standards and circling those words that jumped out at first and then making the chart and again looking at both science and social studies to see where we could tie them together.
I'm looking forward to, now that we have our essential question, getting together a little bit more in our grade level and kind of mapping out what we'll do for each subject area. I especially get excited about writing a lot of times, so I'm trying to think about different writing pieces that we could do together to kind of try and tie in the science aspect as well as the social studies.
I also found it very helpful to do the science and social studies together because, like my colleague there, I often think of teaching them separately. And I'm already starting to think of different literature, trade books, things that I have in the room that would tie right into this.
Approximately had 30 minutes to sit down as a team, take a look at their standards, evaluate where should we go next, and from that great collaboration as a team, we were able to develop a big idea. From that big idea, an essential question. And not just an essential question that fits here and there, and maybe it makes some connections and we're excited about that. No, that essential question, you'll be able to walk into their classroom and see filtered through everything they do. Students will be engaged and excited, and their instruction will make sense. When all think about what's the point? Well, the point is, it will finally make sense.
In a lot of school districts, is they look at professional development as a one-time occurrence. And so for Madison, we took a more strategic approach that the professional development plan that we were going to implement was going to be one that happened in a continuous process and was directly aligned with our district improvement plan and our school improvement plans. So we started out with actually having a professional development day with Kim Marshall around understanding by design and unit design. And then everything that has happened since that time has been strategic, that we've really implemented professional development that is the big picture approach of where we're headed towards some ultimate outcomes with our district improvement plan. And so we've worked back in kind of a UbD approach to provide action plans and strategies to provide professional development for our teachers that is deliberate and intentional.